See something in the world I can escape some black Trans Ams. Big head parachute pants. You can get that. See me. Oh man, I'm so cheesy. So take the stay from the day. Oh, it was 1980 something. Sometimes you don't think about it, you don't mean to. Anyway, I'm getting old. The radio just happens to sit over here all the time when nobody's in the room, so Mama's got some background noise because we're kind of weird that way, right? Man, I could have a whole video on my life experiences and style and everything from the 80s. I had a 1970 Chevy Nova inline six. It was a banger. I painted it red and black. I painted a flaming broadsword down the hood of it. Drove it through high school. Man, I would love wearing leather jackets. I had my brown bomber jacket, the Indiana Jones style jacket, and then a matching hat. That was my gig right up and through my bachelor years until I met her, and still got the hat. Wore it out to Alabama the other week, last weekend. Right. Anyhow, I've got stuff in mind here today, but I got a pile of crap. Wish you had the down view, man. You could see this. This is my life. I've got a whole pile of stuff here that's on my list of things I want to get uh, videos made on, right? And time is part of it, and it just is what it is. I mean, I've got Red Corsair entry coming up. Got the Force Davion field manual that was graciously donated to the channel as a PDF. I got one of the fan projects from Mr. Cross, I believe, Dolores Combat Equipment. Reviews coming up pretty soon, I'm pretty sure. And I've got this one here, right? You know, it's just nice to have a few things on the table. And this is all my stack of stuff. I've also got Battle Space, the box set sitting here. That's on my plan to do. Uh, we'll see. It's getting a late start today. It is a little after about 1:30 now. Yes, Mama. What the gist of the video? So I will try to break it down. I don't know that matters or not. I don't. Truth is, I don't only get if I get 30 30, 40 hits or views on any of these type of videos that I do. I guess it's something, right? So let's get going here. Get my act together, right? Oh, yeah. Right. Oh, yeah, that is Sprite Zero Sugar Wintry Spiced Cranberry. It's a bit sour. It's one of those things when you buy something you don't quite know what you expect. I mean, I have to have the zero sugar stuff because of the diabetes, and that already affects the flavor. I don't care who you are, it just does. Isn't that right, Mama? So let's see what we got going. Oh, okay. I gotta back up a minute. I was watching a video the other day, and I will try to remember to put a link to it, as I often do. I play a lot, or I mean, watch a lot of videos. And the individual was talking specifically about D&D 5e, and you're not a very good microphone, Mama. You know that, right? Yes, I know. You're gonna make me sound like I'm a psychopath or something here talking to you. All right. So he wanted to say is he's come to the belief that the simplified system that introduces new people or new players to Dungeons and Dragons specifically is poorly designed and doesn't do a good job to encourage these players to want to play more or something. It's not as exciting. This fits into that thing where a lot of us have that kind of tendency, if you played a long enough period of time, to want to start as a third to fifth level character and work, go from there. And there's a lot of reason or a lot of good and bad in this. And I've heard this topic off and on for years, decades. This is nothing new, right? It's just something that gets bounded around every now and then. Uh, so I ran this by the techniques of sortium that I'm a minor member of, and it's a sort of a Facebook think tank of really hardcore, deep thinking, savvy, articulated people, right? Big hardcore gamer people. And one of them, Brian Gregory, did a response video on it. And so I'm going to pillage a bunch of stuff from him, and everything, more or less everything, is either a collage of my thoughts, his comments, and or my interpretation thereof of his comments, because therein lies the dangers of paraphrasing, because you can attempt to paraphrase somebody and completely be way off tangent because you want it to be that way, or your mind is bending the reality to fit whatever narrative you think you need to have, which is not always part of critical thinking, in my opinion. But what do I know? I'm just a dumb pick from Iowa who, barely can keep his head above water. All right, so why do we need simple play, right? I mean, to what do you mean by a simple? It's a simple game. It's more than slightly simply rolling a dice, right? So one of the things that that's the group, generally the few in the group that responded, and myself and past experiences come to conclude, is when you bring new players to your table, and specifically for heavy game mechanic systems such as Dungeons and Dragons. You can make the argument. Let's just set the argument aside of crunch versus you know, ease of play and simplicity, and games that are designed to have as minimal whatever to them as possible. You set all that aside for a moment. If you're trying to learn mechanics of a game system, first things first, you've literally never been on the table. So let's say, I don't know, you're somebody, you're a former jock, or you're a devout Christian who would never resort to that sort of thing, but are very curious about it anyway, because I have a family full of them. So if you can't take it, tough, kick rocks. That's the real world realities that a lot of people sensibilities can't handle these days. You know what? I ain't got time for it. I'm going to die in another 30 years. So you know what? I ain't got time for it. The Mommy, I know you want to help. I know you want attention, but good gravy. Good gravy. I mean, literally, she just, well, yeah, you can see. She just see, all right? Now you're getting me off track. I can't even see what I need to see, and you're getting in my, yes, to help new people understand. First things first, new people, we're talking people who have never played a game at all, who may be skeptical of it, hesitant of it, have heard bad juju stuff about it, about how it's a horrible, horrible thing for us to be involved in, kind of stuff, because I don't know, we're all going to do wicked, terrible, those people. I've got them in my family too, right? Some of them are so full of themselves that they, their hypocrisy, just they wear it like a freaking robe and they can't see it for what it is. It's just shameful, And they talk about everybody else, What about the beam and thy own eye? Right? Don't get me off on biblical stuff. I start to get really, I really get agitated when I start to go down that road. That's a lifetime in the Pentecostal church, surrounded by diehard maniacs that have a lot of really strict beliefs that contradict with each other on a regular damn basis. And they themselves will acknowledge that because they get off on it, right? So the new people who've never played the game, first thing first, the very basic concept of setting down with a first level character, preferably a simple character, and an experienced player can tell you which characters are probably easiest for a new player to get a hold of early on. This is why I always recommend to new players to not play the bard, because a bard is a very tricky player or character to play successfully, and if you're not really prepared for the nuances of it, you're going to be disillusioned by it really, really fast. And that's not the sort of thing we're trying to give to a person who's never sat down at the table before. This is their first. ever experienced. So we want to give them the real experience to the mechanics. So we're going to also put aside role play. The debate over how much role play, how little, how much immersion, all that doesn't have anything for this at this particular point in the game. These new people are not here to learn how to be an actor or an actress. They're not here to learn a role or to assume a pretended thing over something that they themselves are probably rebelling against, even at the very idea of sitting down at your table in the first place. Think about that for a moment. This is something that Brian brought up, and I fully understand it, and I fully concur with that assessment. When we talk about people who have not played, I myself never grew up. And I admit that, and it's hard to admit it sometimes, but a portion of myself has rebelled and been terrified of this thing that's supposed to be adulthood in America, and I've obviously not done a good job of dealing with it and coping with it and figuring out how to get past it. But on the other side, on that same issue, but on the backside of that, my imagination has never closed down. They try hard. We as parents tried hard. A lot of us maybe not, but a lot more did. And you know these people if you're not one of them, or you don't have these as parents or siblings. You're taught to put away the childish stuff as early as possible. We learn to work hard, study hard, play hard in a social world different style, i.e., the courting games that's typical for young men and women, and then the early married life for many, and the career track for many. You see, we get it gets harder and harder for people to open their imagination to be effectively immerse themselves in something. This takes time, patience, something I don't see a lot of in a lot of YouTuber videos. They get some people just they get frustrated and upset something's not quite going as fast as they think it should, and they don't get it. It takes time. So another thing that the new player is going to be learning at the table, not just the mechanic of rolling the dice and figuring out what this means to hit and what this means to take damage or to deal damage, the basic mechanics. They're also learning the language of the game. Think about that for a minute. Take a moment and stop and think of all the terminology that we use and associate with games in general. Tabletop games specifically, war games specifically. Keep in mind, this is a lexicon of stuff that we learn that's compartmentalized in many ways. This is not unlike being in, say, the military, for example. One of my greatest, one of my greatest regrets is not pursuing that. I really, really, really wish I had pursued it harder, but I didn't. So can't go back, right? Can't go back to that. But I have a family full of people who did, and they all serves, and some come back much better off than they were when they went in. Some not so much, right? It's all a mixed bag. But there's a lexicon that the military has within itself that unless you're experienced to it, adjacent to it on a regular basis, i.e., being somebody who's a big geek on the culture, where you're surrounded by it like I was growing up, you have a better understanding of the terminology that they often toss around, especially the acronyms that the government truly loves. And so do a lot of role playing games, if you had not noticed. Right? So the new player at the table who's never played any game whatsoever and just maybe observed over here, but mostly have had their doubts and a lot of other people whispering in their ears of all the, really the weird, the weird, unusual, maybe heretical, you know what I mean, evil devil worshiper stuff. No, I'm just saying, right? Oh, yeah. It's It's an acquired taste. I will tell you, I will not buy another one of these boxes. We got a box. I was looking for something different other than the Pepsi Zero that I swilled down. I figured, okay, let's try something like this. And I've got 9 more cans to go yet. That might be stuff that will be available for visitors when they come to the house. Would you like a cold soda? Here, yes, here you go. Watch them go or quietly decline it. I mean, because I would understand that they would, or they would want to. So we're trying to teach these new players who have never experienced this concept, and other than in their very limited imagination, the basics of how to do it, how to the language, so they can understand what everybody else at the table is saying, and to begin to learn the more nuances of both the mechanics, the game, the social interaction at and around the table, and how the character is beginning to develop. Because, like I said, it's very rare for a brand new player to catch on and run out the gate. And people who do, I tend to believe, either play a lot of video games in their youth, or maybe have played or have done some playing in the past, and they're either ashamed of it or forgot that they did. I mean, because that's just my personal opinion on this, right? So that brings us to the next point. We're helping these new people become used to the social aspects of playing. There's a lot of things that we take for granted in role playing games. And one of the most common questions that I run into from people looking in, from outsiders looking in, is why? Why do you, or no, how do you win? How do you win? And I've said it many, 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 many times since I was a young person. I learned you win by playing. It's not and with whoa, whoa, it's not a game that we're trying to compete against each other and everything else. At the end of the day, yes, there's a lot of competition, and it can be quite fun, but we're not competing for score. Who's got the highest, score at the end of the night, unless it's some kind of weird social thing you got in the group. Who shot the most orcs, that kind of thing. Right? But what we're trying to introduce them is to this that it's okay to sit down at the table, to relax, and to embrace what's going on, and to feel that they're not going to be judged or belittled or ridiculed by anybody in the room. And if there's that one heckler type, that one Nelson that wants to go, whoo, whoo, you know what? Show them the door. Don't do that to a new player. Don't ever do that to a new player, because that's not fair. You're not going to get as an ambassador, you as a player with any kind of experience, and you're trying to introduce this game, your favorite game, to a new person that you want to play. Respect that they're new and they do not have anything that you have at the table at the moment. And that includes enthusiasm, knowledge, confidence, and imagination. Just think about that for a moment, all right? So, we also learn how the social dynamics work, how we work as teams, how the group wants to handle, wants to handle being immersed. Are they okay? Well, obviously, if you have a new player, you have to suspend that total immersion drive. It's not going to work. These new people need to be able to ask questions then and there on the spot and get solid answers back. And if that requires a little bit of demonstration discussions, because they're new, that's part of having a new having new people at your table. It is what it is. And if you're one of these absolute elitists that absolutely will not deal with any of this stuff and won't let new people once again, the door's right there, my friend. Good luck. Get out. You're the terrible person. As an ambassador to the hobby, as an ambassador for just gaming, for the social contract we all want to engage in, and that's that kind of attitude, I ain't got time for these people. I mean, really don't. I really had an issue with somebody recently, and I'm not going to go down that deal because it's not good to talk about the deceased because of that attitude. And he wasn't the only one. There's a couple others that really really grind like gears, right? So. The social nuances of playing at a table with a group of people. And this is also becomes part of them being introduced to the idea of a social contract, of what's expected of them as a player. Yeah, I think we do new players a disservice by not at least giving them oh, by the by, or FYI, This is who, what, why, and where, and we enjoy. We encourage you to join us and have fun with us, and and engage with the game and stuff, and see where we go from there. But basic ground rules: this, and this. I'm sorry, you weren't here for session zero, or you don't even know what a session zero is. Here we go. Here's what, and then this, and this. And then if we need more discussion and stuff, you can do that off the table and in a more social and less game related social environment, I guess, right? We also want the new players, they're going to learn the how and the why of using dice. Why sometimes you don't need to roll a die, that you can look at the situation and your stats and go, I got that. We're good. That's where immersion comes into full form. Where being comfortable and knowledgeable in your character and your system allows you to really immerse into your character's life on the table, because you don't need to go and say, "Oh wait, can I get a judgment call on that?" or "Do I need to do this and this?" Because you already know, or at least you don't have a passing knowledge that you think you know. And most of your game masters are going to roll with it as long as it ain't absurd or blatant. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a good GM will roll with whatever you throw at, whatever you come up with, as long as it's not absurd or blatant. You can't tell the difference between those two. That would be another day, a video for another rant for a different day. All right. So we want them to learn why there's plus and minuses, why there's modifiers, what some of these rolls, what's the difference between rolling to hit and rolling to save. And you don't have to go into a 45-minute lecture on this mechanic. We just give them the on the fly as we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is you need to make a save, and this is why, briefly, and then have them make the dice roll. And then show them this was the number you're trying to beat, or the number you're trying to avoid hitting, however your system plays it out. Why do we have entry level simplified play? The need to learn the rules of the game, why and how we can do what we do. When is it appropriate for something to attack, and what is the formula for doing this? The accepted set of rules that we all are playing by that underlies everything else. This is a tutorial in many ways, and for the new player, we can't expect them to absorb everything in the couple hours they're going to be there, but it's behovens to us to give them, see, here's that stupid thing again that just pops up, and I keep saying, no, go away. I freaking hate it. PC helper driver. I don't give a F how many million drivers are missing. What if this thing's working? I don't want to touch it any more than it is. It's been hard enough just to get damn videos that I got sound on. All right. Yeah. God, I hate it. I just hate it. It just pops up and then it just starts taking over the machine. I'm getting old and cranky and despondent. We just got told that our mortgage is going up in December. $100. I don't know where the hell I'm going to come up with another $100. I honestly don't. It's bad. It's not going to be a good year, and unless something grossly changes, I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. It is what it is. So, right, learning the why and the hows of why we use the dice, and learning to understand the basic concepts of the rules. In many ways, this was one of the reasons why I was a huge fan for many, many years of using the basic set book, which the BX or what everybody would call it now, the basic expert, to introduce, if I had an actual table of brand new players, two or more of them were literally never played in a game in their lives. My favorite was to break out the old red book and use that, and it was. After that, I used first edition AD&D mostly because of the simplicity of running things. And I equated it back in the day. Sometimes you have to equate things. And in a lot of video games, when you entry into your video games, you got almost no stats and no skill sets and no advantages and no powered up anything. So you got to you earn your way. So back in the '90s, when I was playing a bunch of MMOs, you went on a rant hunt. Your goal, your little first level floob would run around the edges of town or in the city sewers and hunt rats and kill them and collect their tails in bundles of 10, and that would get you necessary experience to get you up to the next level and to get you a little bit of coin that would get you some spending coin. The time I was playing a game called Gemstone 3, and the other alternative path for advancement was to go out in the pathways just outside of the town you were born in, and acquire herbs. You would go out just like the rat tails. You would go out and search for them and collect them and bundle them in bundles of 10. And then you would take them into town, and there was an NPC vendor that you could sell them to. And you would get, once again, a little bit of coin and a little bit of experience. And it took a lot, I don't know, 3 to 5 hours of really hard doing this to bounce up if you get up a level or two, and then you could start going and facing the real baddies that were like, the kobolds of the game kind of stuff. So that's kind of the same concept here. We have to learn and walk through and teach them the nuances and the mechanics and the rules and the dice stuff, and we got to do this in a manner that isn't overwhelming and or aggressive and or argumentative, because that is always not going to be a good thing, right? So, oh, for some people, we need to relearn how to use our imagination. That is a bigger challenge for more new players than anything else you can think of. Anything else you can think of. This is the truth. It goes back to that earlier part I was talking about, where a lot of us have imagination beat out of us. There's a reason why a lot of people don't have the skills to draw, and it's not because mechanically they can't learn to do draw. It's the imagination problem. They can't vision the scene in their mind in a realistic enough manner or in a complete enough manner to replicate through that skill. Singing, you know, public speaking. These are all. I got thinking about this earlier because it's related to this sort of thing. Is that uh, Mama, why don't you go on up there? You're you're not going to go up there, are you? Well, you're not going to stay in my mouth all this time, okay? You're not going to get in my mouth. She just keeps pushing her head right into my mouth. It's getting annoying. It really is. You've been at it for a long time now, for Pete's sake. So, and you're making me forget where the hell I was again. Damn. This is my life. This is my life, right? Ah, that's what you get for buying stuff on sale too. Oof. It's new for the holidays, I suspect. Thank God. I guess it could have been worse if it had pumpkin spice. Sprite Zero something, because they put pumpkin spice in every freaking thing else. Why not that too? I better not say much. That the internet has ears. You never know what might come up next. It might be horrific. It might be horrific, right? Yeah. So let's see. For some people, we need to relearn our imagination. You know, I can honestly say I've run into that more than anything else. That a lot of people they've disconnected from their childhood imagination so long ago that they struggle with it. They're actually in a conflict, in an inner conflict with their inner child. And it's funny how some people that can be the most dour and angry looking people in the world can sit down at that table and open up and become unrecognizable. And yet, you can bring some of the most boisterous, outgoing alpha types that you know and put them at that table, and they just freeze or clam up or freeze up or just become stoic and don't want to engage, because inwardly they're fighting themselves. They're fighting this. They're fighting the very concept of what it is we're wanting to do here. And for every person who comes to the table, not everybody knows what they're expecting to get out of it. They don't know what they want to get out of it, especially these new players. Those of us who do, we have our expectations, and then they rarely jive with everybody else's. But it's why we keep coming back and keep involving ourselves in these things in the first place, in my opinion. Right? So re-engaging that imagination is a challenge. And in part, these games help re-engage your imagination. It really does, in my mind. It really does. It's like, for me, it's like watching a movie. So I see a movie, and that first sit down, first couple hours, it's entertainment. But if it was good enough and I watch it again, my mind starts focusing on different stuff without realizing I'm focusing on it, because now I'm looking for things that my mind missed the first time. I'm trying to fill in the puzzle pieces. And you start seeing the little MacGuffins and the bird eggs and so on and so on and so on that the creators want you to find and see, you know. Or you start seeing things that are not there, and you start making up a lot of crazy theory on YouTube about them, and then next thing you know, there's a whole weird cult chasing you down that rabbit hole, and you know how that goes or how that will end up. We may never know. All right. So the key part of this that goes hand in hand with relearning or learning to re-engage one's imagination for the sheer fun of fun is learning that it's okay to let yourself go, to have fun. It's okay to give your adult self, to give you your adult, sense of adventure, the thumbs up to go ahead and try and engage and to let go of the real world issues for a moment, let go of whatever the horrible things that's weighing you down, or whatever if just the normal daily wear and tear and grind of normal life. This is something that gives you a diversion, a chance for something different. And of course we all come to that table with different expectations, and some of us have no expectations. We just came to the table, and there you go. I mean, yeah, yeah. How do you feel that? I don't know how to follow up on that one. So, right. So we have to relearn. The new player coming to the table probably most likely has to relearn how to play for the fun, for the sake of fun, of just having fun. How many people do you know who golf? And they golf because it's a competition. I know a lot of people whose real reasons for golfing is the competition. Oh, sure, we get some exercise. You get some exercise. You're walking, unless you're wealthy and you're all doing that. You all got your golf carts to take you every 50, any further than 20 feet, you got a golf cart to take you, right? Uh, you're in the, fresh air. You're socializing with people who have a similar, hobby and fashion, or at least interest that you do. But there's so many other nuance levels that go along with that quote sport, right? A lot of business deals get made on the fairway. It's a long known thing. So if you want to socially better yourself in a corporate environment, best learn how to golf. More importantly, best learn to make the other guys think you know how to golf and you'll enjoy golfing. And you know, try to avoid actually going out there if you don't have to. Uh, I never. It was okay. I just never really got into it. It wasn't my gig. It's not really. The other thing is to understand that this is not a competition. This goes back to what I started earlier saying, that new players don't understand that to win is to have fun. The win is to engage at the table with everybody and yourself and the characters and have fun. At least have some idea that you enjoyed yourself. There's levels of fun, I grant you. You don't have to be a drooling idiot kind of whatever fun, but you want to come back and then have another experience. If whatever we do at our table for that new player does that, we succeeded. We won. But more importantly, they won. The group wins, they win, we win, everybody wins. So it's not a competition. This is why we bake in to people, especially new players. Yes, yes, my friend. First level is very dangerous, very detrimental to new players because it's very easy for them to die, even in fifth edition. As the game master, my friend. It's our responsibility to make damn sure that we don't put obstacles in the way of these very fragile characters that they can't overcome. Hence is why, the challenge ratings and back in the day was hit die was a quarter of yours on average. That was your thing. You're going to go up a couple rats that even if one bites you, you're not going to die from it, and you're going to more likely murder it before it bites you. You know, you're still going to risk getting bit because, once again, that's part of the game. And the fact that your character can die is a very important thing for these people to learn very early on. That there's no mulligans until they get a lot more powerful and they have a lot of magical access, clerical stuff, and friends. I'm just saying, but at the beginning, there's no mulligans. Your character is very fragile, so you need to be cautious and not foolhardy. And accept the fact if you are going to act in a foolhardy and incautious manner, if your character dies every 15 or 20 minutes, perhaps the group needs to have a discussion about why it's not okay for you to keep letting your character croak because you're doing it on purpose, Mr. New Player and Mr. Experienced Player who wants to be a snit. Yeah, that's a term for back in the MMO days, so never mind. Anyway, let's see, right? It's not a competition. Geez, I don't know how many times I had to really, really express that it's not a competition. And when you try to it's a real challenging to get that through some very competitive people's minds. There's a couple categories of people that come to the table that are extremely competitive, even when they say they're not. That's so ingrained in them, they can't see it for what it is. And that's fine in a lot of applications, but not all applications. And this is what makes them somewhat antisocial in certain situations. It's a trick to learn how to deal with them. And I don't recommend it to very many people if you're trying to deal with somebody like that, but you will know them when you meet them and they're in your room at your table because you will be very aware that there's an issue there. Anyway, so we're also going to teach these new people, these new players, that low-level player characters, the concept of what a low-level character is, the low stats, and explain to them why you don't run. Let me rephrase this. I'm going to reiterate exactly how I got it written down. The low-level PC, the low-stat PC, who blindly runs will often become disillusioned. Think about that for a minute. Okay. Trying to figure out how to explain that without just blatantly saying it out. Right. Yeah, or working it out, and I'm still trying to put my head around it. What the hell does it mean? The low level PC, the entry level player who just blindly runs around with their head cut off will become disillusioned. That's pretty much what I was trying to go for. You got to have structure, right? It goes to that player agency, and I'm all for player agency. But that player agency, in part, is earned. It's not owed to you as a player. It's an agreement. It's part of that social structure agreement that we all agree to. But that new player who comes in, that new person has no concept of what any of this stuff is, including those nuances. When I say the nuances, there are many, many, many layers of stuff that we take for granted today that we take for granted that we have to remind ourselves whenever our little brother or the neighbor or grandma and grandpa who's in for town who's never done anything like this, this evil devil worshiping stuff in their life before, but we're game to say what it is, so let me go back to the church and tell them. How do you introduce that? How do you coach that? How do best way is the simplest way. Keeping it simple, stupid, has lots and lots of uses in my mind. Yes? Okay. Right? You need to simply play to simply get started. You need simple play to simply get started. I mean, I think that says it in a nutshell. That ought to be the title to the video, right? So the expectation of play has become too overblown today. Brian brought that up, and I truly believe he's correct. I've seen it become even more prominent over the last couple of years. The expectation of play has become too overblown today. These expectations are often the cause of the dissatisfaction. people play the game first, role play is inserted second, and fiddle to yeah, right, to fiddle to this all right. That's true. We forget today a lot of people who are really, really hardcore into developing the high end of the role play element of immersion and theater of mind are completely downplaying or ignoring unfairly to new players the mechanics that go hand in hand with all this. The reason you can do all this theater of the mind is in part because we have this litany of crunchy rules and different rule sets that we understand that gives us the structure that we can work in, the parameter that we will accept, the ground baking, because if you don't have trust and acceptance between the players, you have nothing. We all have to agree that we're going to abide by what the rule book says when it comes to all of it. Now, if we agree to have a table change or house rule or whatever, we're still agreeing as the group to that caveat to the accepted rules, which still means we are accepting the rules with the exception of this or making it twist to this. Okay. We forget that sometimes and we start to diminish that. And when you start talking about new players, new people at table, especially adult people who are already struggling with the idea of this is even okay to do. I've never done this before. It's weird. I've heard a lot of bad crap about it. You see, you really, really want to just all of a sudden unload on them. Well, you got to be in character, as character, all the time, blah, blah, blah. And you never ask us a mechanical question or a confirmation. Right? Yes, yes, I know. I'm starting to get goofy. That might be this crowd. I'll tell you what, I just got up and taken a nap too, and I'm tired. I'm tired. Yeah, I don't know. It's Sunday. Yesterday wasn't too bad. The wife and I went for a drive to look at the foliage. Once again, we drove down around southern Iowa for about 4 or 5 hours. The company pays for my gas, so it's about the only cheap entertainment I can do these days. And that's assumed. And if the van breaks, they'll fix the van right now. So I mean, that's all I got. So we went for a long drive and got saw a bevy of wild turkeys run across this back gravel road in southern Iowa. The blacktop ended and blacktop and the gravel started. It does that sometimes, and I don't like it, but it does it. So we got down in this hollow space and bunch of these turkeys ran across, and the wife's like, "Oh, I wish I had the photo. I could have taken pictures." And, what do you do? And then about a mile up the road, along the same stretch, this pair of deer are crossing the road, and they're like staring at us, like, What are you doing out here?" They're like, "It's the middle of the day. We're going, what are you doing out here?" It is what it is. Wildlife, you gotta love it. So experienced players ought to forget how it was when they first started. Right? The rule book is a manual. Think about that for a moment. That's something that as a mechanic style of explaining to somebody. I have told a lot of adult men who sat at my table who were very skeptical or very leery or very lightly intrigued by this whole idea of what we're doing and why we are so passionate about it. And some of them were just out of curiosity, and some of them because they wanted to be involved with the group of people. They wanted to join a group of friends, have some associates, and have a common ground. So some people go bowling, some people golf, some people role play. It is what it is, right? So the idea being is that how do you deal? I mean, now once again I lost my damn neighbor freaking threat, right? Oh, the rule book is a manual. So I told him, I says, when I hand him, here, here you go, age 12 and 62 and blah, 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 and start writing. What? What do you mean you got to write? That's another freaking challenge too. I'm running into that a lot more than some of you guys do, I bet you. Anyway, situations and locations and people I was dealing with in my past in my lifetime. A lot of them didn't read much, didn't read very well at all, if at all. Writing was not. They did short of signing a check. signing their name to something to get them to comprehend what they were reading was also a challenge, right? How do you work with new people with like that? You can find yourself throwing your hands up in the air real quick and go, why are you even sitting here, my friend? I mean, I get it, but you can still engage them. You can still teach them. They can learn. My friend Kenny, once again, is a grand example of somebody who can overcome a lot and still have fun doing what they do and help you have fun at the table too. You know, there's a lot to be said about people, the Kennys of the world, in my mind. Right? So I tell them, it's no different than getting a Chilton manual. You got a Chilton manual for your car? Do you know what a Chilton manual is? Do you know what I'm talking about? Well, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a company that makes these manuals for every car that's ever made. They make a manual for it, and these things can be this damn thick. And they'll have most of the mechanical needs, the stat number, part numbers, locations, instructions on how to put them in, to take them out. They're extremely valuable tools. And before the internet, of course, they were the only tools that a lot of mechanics, and especially backyard mechanics, had to work from to learn things. If grandpa didn't teach you and dad didn't teach you, you had to be self-taught. And one of the things that grandpa you watched and learned by watching grandpa and watching dad work was these damn manuals are gold, because they would go to those things on a regular basis when they were trying to fiddle with something that they didn't want to spend $500 at having a mechanic do. It's much, much harder to do that now with these new cars today, but the manual still exists. So that's what I tell them. Or I says it's a football manual. It's the instruction manual. You were in the army. It was the instruction manual that came with your damn rifle. You learn this stuff and you don't think about it. So the mechanics is different. The applications of the mechanics may be different, yes, but the concept of the what do I want to call it? Commercially written manual. People go to college and get degrees in writing in manuals. You don't think so? I guarantee it. I guarantee that's a thing. I have 2 semesters of one is business writing, and half that business writing semester was learning how to create things for manuals because of the job career path I tried to take, and the other one was mechanic writing, learning how to, do the charts and the graphs and to. There's a reason why I'm pretty decent at how to do that stuff the old school way. Now a lot of it now it's all digital, blah blah. Nobody learns. It's like, oh, we don't teach cursive in school anymore. Yeah, well, nobody has to do it. Everybody uses computers now. Everybody types, and I grant you, my cursive is horrible. My cursive is very, very bad, very bad. I have been printing things for years because my cursive is horrible. I can't read it myself, and in part was because I just never used very much of it. I wrote everything out longhand, and I would print it. I would print it out because it was just easier for other people to read it because my cursive was always bad back in school. But now public schools, a lot of public schools don't teach it anymore. They're not teaching cursive or any advanced writing classes in that aspect anymore either. And I got wondering about this because I'm a conspiracy nut, because I was an Iowa farm boy, we was as close to being a redneck as a redneck can be, except, we don't have that rich red clay soil. We got brown shit colored soil. It is what it is, man. Yeah, yeah. It's all them pigs and cows and Republicans. I mean, never mind. I'll just say politicians. Yeah. Okay. Right. I went and voted the other day, so I've made peace with where I'm at. The end of the world's going to happen one way or another. Ain't got nothing to do with it. So we'll see what the new year brings. That $100 increase in my mortgage might be the least of my problems. I guarantee you, if there's some kind of massive tariff put on everything coming into the country, because most of us poor folk buy crap from China because it's cheap, and there ain't no alternatives for it here. We can't get a lot of our cheaply made Chinese crap in America because America, we let them move their crap out. Remember, from the 80s and 90s. Yeah, yeah. Part of that Reagan era. Yeah, the Bushes. Yeah, all that manufacturing capacity kept moving out of the country, kept moving out of the country. And we put them big honking tariffs in there. I'm going to be defaulting on about $400 a month in credit cards right off the bat because I won't have money to pay for it. There goes my credit. Now I'm in a spiral. You see, I'm walking that line so damn thick, like a lot of y'all are. And for y'all that don't and you're doing better than we are, embrace that. Good for you. Be grateful because life can turn vicious in a minute, right? I watched some Netflix last night, and we actually got bloody commercials in the Netflix. I was like, I'm about ready to tell Netflix where to shove it. I want Netflix. I don't have commercials in my damn stuff. I can watch these movies, free through or through the Ryoku stuff, and if I want commercials, I'm just saying. But I was watching Unhinged with Russell Crowe. Yeah. That is a nasty movie. Mm. That just reminds me of it could get worse. It can always, always get worse. I know firsthand just how bad it can get. I just have to sometimes remind myself, which is why I don't go whack-a-mole. I just, right? So in a lot of ways, a rule book is a manual. It's no different than a manual teaching you how to repair a vehicle, to operate a computer, or how to program something. I mean, at the end of the day, the concept for this simple game is we want to introduce people who are very inexperienced to the entire theater of the tabletop role-playing game concept, not any one piece of it. So we're going to introduce them to this very simple, basic, dumbed down version of D&D, or dumbed down version of any game you want. One of the things I tell people who wanted to, when I used to run BattleTech competitions and stuff at our local convention, um, when they had never played before, I said, we're going to give you a medium mech. And no, see, my personal opinion was always been that light mechs in BattleTech are actually better suited for expert players, people who have understanding of why that mech is, so fragile and what its strengths are. And if you can't play to those strengths and use them effectively, then you're going to be very disillusioned when you lose very quickly. You take a couple losses and run up on an Atlas. Unless your gig is to just have your stuff wrecked in the first couple rounds and be happy with that, then you'll be okay. But majority of people will be terribly upset about that, whether they admit it or not. It will be an impactful thing. It's just like, I don't recommend running a 40-ton mech up on a medium mech up on an Atlas either, because you're going to get it smashed in a few minutes, a few rounds anyhow. But at least gives you a little bit more of a tussle, right? And maybe a chance to realize that that was not a good idea and run away. Right? You might not be smart enough to do that with a light mech and that realize that you don't have an option. Your runaway is to run away before it hits you and not after. Because the likelihood of an Atlas unloading on you is that your mech will not exist as opposed to something else. And then, of course, you go the opposite equation when I tell people you really don't want to start a new player who's never played before in an Atlas, because despite all the firepower of an assault mech, there's a lot of nuances to operating them well, but the biggest downside is their slow speed. They're very slow. And so they really are specialized combatants for specific environments, not just the jack of all general trade that you want somebody to do to learn how to play the game from. And it's just not conducive to them getting a good experience, and better importantly, might be the gist of part of all this simplified concept of play in the first place, is to get a rounded experience at the basic entry level. Once you've been in the game system long enough, and you know this, all of us know this from experience. We've all been there, right? If you played for more than 6 months, you qualify without a doubt. You are now an experienced player of ninth degree, whatever you want to call yourself, doesn't matter. So at this point, those very entry level, first level characters are kind of just like painful. And you know what I'm talking about. This is why many play tables just choose to start at third or fourth level or fifth level or something like that. It's because we don't want to go hunting for rat tails and herbs. We know how we want our character to trick it out. We know what we want to do. Let's just get to something where we can actually start on that part of the game, which is why we do a slightly advanced version when we say let's start at third level character. Because you've already mastered the lexicon, you understand the mechanics and how and why dice is rolled and how and why things there are. You understand the social expectations and the social and player agency and GM agency, and you understand what the environment's going to be because you've already worked out, as a group, where you want to play, et cetera, world building 101 to 109 or whatever. So, yeah, it's very important, my friends. Simplified play has its purpose. And I'll leave you with one more thought on that. From a 50-year, that's 5-decade experienced player and game master of Dungeons and Dragons specifically, but of role playing games in general. The simplified system that many game systems establish when you first start playing them is in part because the creators of that game system know in their heart that there's a likelihood that the person that picks up this game system has never played anything in their life before. They have never played a role-playing game whatsoever. It was the greatest role-playing game. I'm just saying, the hand thing, right? Um, if you never played a game in your life, and let's do the hypothetical, the end of the world happens in 6 months, and all hell breaks loose. And you've managed to build yourself a little bunker under your house or out in the woods, and you got your kids, your family, your loved ones there, and or you boarded, you've bunkered in at home, praying that the insanity ends and the nuclear bombs stop falling and or the zombies stop rising or whatever the next apocalypse thing that these a-hole nuts keep screaming about happens. Marjorie Taylor Greens of the worlds. Right. The Jewish space lasers don't get you first. The government generated targeted hurricane gonna get you next. Right? And that stuff's drove me nuts, man. I have been utterly grateful to see a lot of that go away. At least for a couple more years, because it's been ugly and stupid. So stupid. I am not a follower by any means. That's always been my problem. I will not blindly follow nothing. Unfortunately, I'm not brave enough and confident enough to forge my own damn path. And after running off a couple cliffs, I'd very much given up on, just getting by the next week and the next month. That's what I got to look forward to till I'm dead. Sorry, I'm getting a little sour. A lot of this stuff comes out of that. If I was sitting here and I have an advantage because I can entertain myself till I'm literally starved to death or the bomb drops. I am not going to lack from something to keep my brain busy, although the nightmare and the terror of existence will probably make sure I'll have plenty to worry about. But if you were in a environment where you're by yourself and you want something to do and you don't have a video game, you don't have access to it, or maybe you're just tired of the video game. I mean, do you want to do some kind of solo game? You can pick up these mechanic books, any one of these core books. I've always told people, if you've never played a game in your life, if you have the player handbook of any edition of Dungeons and Dragons, you got a game. You don't need anything else. If you're clever and you have a little bit of imagination, that player handbook is enough to get you going. You don't need a monster manual. You don't need the Dungeon Master's Guide. They're all desirable, grant you. You expand your options considerably. But at the end of the day, the set player handbook is what matters. At the end of the day, that's the game manual you gotta have. Otherwise, try playing Dungeons and Dragons without a player's handbook. I tried. It's hard to come up with crap from memory, and you better have a good memory because you're not going to come up with 90%. You'll be lucky to come up with 30% of the basics in that player handbook because we take it as a manual. The manual, a tool that we can acquire and utilize when we need, which is what my big beef about digital stuff today is about. I need that physical thing that I can sit on a shelf and collect dust because what if the world ends? What if we have a massive power problem or the internet collapses or so utterly hacked that like we get a Comstar event takes place? Once again, if you don't know what that is, that's a BattleTech reference and join the club. You really should join the BattleTech community because you really have a viable and fun group of people there. I'm telling you, I really wish I could connect with the ghost units that run around here. I keep hearing about, but never ever seem to reply to the Facebook stuff or show up. Or maybe they just don't want some goofy old grandpa hanging out at the table. It is what it is. So I guess I'm going to end the rant for the moment. I got this all out of my chest, and I'll get it out on the thing later. And we are just over an hour. Good God. Good God. Okay, from me, Mama's death. Took her, what, 45 minutes, 40 minutes to calm down?